Every time you turn on the TV, scroll through your phone, or fire up a playlist, you're making a choice. Or are you? How much of that choice is really yours? Today we're digging into the big theories about who truly controls the media that fills our lives.
So let's start with that central question. Who's really in the driver's seat here? Is it you, the audience, or is it some small group of powerful owners and corporations calling all the shots? Well, the answer isn't quite as simple as you might think. To get to the bottom of it, let's start with our first major theory. It's called pluralism. And this perspective argues that in the huge marketplace of media, the answer is actually pretty simple. You, the consumer, are king.
So what does that actually mean? Well, pluralism is the idea that the media content we get is shaped directly by our choices. It sees the whole media world as this big, competitive marketplace where all these companies are just trying to get your attention.
Now, this was a really big shift in thinking. See, the old view was that audiences were just passive sponges, kind of soaking up whatever they were shown. But pluralism, it totally flips that idea on its head. It sees you as an active audience. You don't just take what you're given, you actively buy what you like, and you ignore the stuff that doesn't fit with your beliefs or your life. So how does this actually work? Pluralists call it the discipline of the marketplace, and it's a pretty simple but powerful cycle. It all starts with us, right? We demand certain kinds of content. Then the media companies have to compete with each other to give it to us. The ones who do it best, they make a profit. And in the end, we get the content we wanted all along. So, the most important point from the pluralist perspective is this. The real power lies with you, the consumer. Your clicks, your views, your subscriptions, think of them as votes. And if a media company consistently fails to get your vote, it just goes out of business.
That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? A perfect system where the customer is always right. But, of course, there's a really compelling counterargument that paints a very different picture.
So, is it really that simple? Critics of pluralism would say, not so fast. They argue that this idealized view kind of overlooks some very real concentrations of power in the media world. The first big critique takes aim at this idea that the owners are separate from the people actually running the company. This argument goes way back to 1977, when sociologists Murdoch and Golding basically said that separation is often just an illusion. At the very top, managers are often huge shareholders themselves, so they tend to think and act just like the owners do because they share the exact same interests and goals. And this is definitely still the case today. Even in these massive, publicly traded companies, really powerful individuals and families, like the Murdochs at News Corp, they can and they do exert direct control over the whole business. And that, of course, influences the kind of content that gets made across their huge media empires. Another point of disagreement is the role of new media. I mean, sure, the internet gives us what feels like infinite options, but does that actually equal infinite influence? Critics would argue that old media, like the major TV networks, still reach way bigger audiences than most new platforms. And with that scale, often comes a higher degree of established public trust. So the key takeaway here is that having more choices isn't the same as having more power. Just because there are millions of websites out there, it doesn't mean that power is distributed evenly. A few giants can still totally dominate the conversation, set the agenda, and decide what becomes a major story. And that brings us to the rise of the new gatekeepers. You see, it's just more efficient for giant corporations to get bigger, so they tend to dominate. Just think about it. Apple, through its App Store, has total control over which apps and what music can even be sold. If they think a song is unacceptable, it can be excluded or censored. It's that simple. And it's the same with Amazon. Their influence over which books you even see is immense. These tech giants have become the new gatekeepers of our culture.
So we're left with two very different stories about where media power really lies. Let's put them side by side and see how it all shakes out.
Okay, let's break it down. The pluralist view says the audience is king, choice is everywhere, and the market delivers what the people want. The counterargument, on the other hand, insists that it's the owners and managers who are really in control, that old media and the new tech gatekeepers dominate everything, and that just having competition doesn't actually guarantee a real diversity of ideas. Which brings us to the final thought, the one for you to take away. As you're scrolling through your feed tonight, watching your favorite show, or streaming that new album, just ask yourself this. In this whole massive media ecosystem, are you the customer who's being served, or are you the product whose attention is being sold?